What was your conversation like with Bobby Kennedy about psychedelics?
And he said,
We know what we need and we know what we want. And we can't get it done because some fucking politician in D.C. who didn't ever step a foot on a fucking combat ever, never, is making the decisions for us. What was your conversation like with Bobby Kennedy about psychedelics?
eye-opening. Because, of course, he is very, Make America Healthy Again, getting people, getting the food additives out, getting those kind of stuff. And I asked him specifically, because we were talking about this, I said psychedelics. Because his agency would have some say and some, the studies and stuff on that. And it was really interesting. Bobby starts talking about this and he says, he said, I was a heroin addict. He said, putting stuff in your body, he said, for me to begin to talk about, having something put in my body to quote fix, he said, that's just nowhere close for me. He said, because of my past. He said, but then he wanted to explain a family member of his, a child of his, who had an experience using psychedelics that changed his life drastically. And he said, I would have never thought this, would have never saw, sort of, I would let him explain the way he sees it. But he said, this is working. He said, I've changed my mind about this, because he said, I actually see it happening and see it work. And he said, in my own, flesh and blood. And I think that's the part that, for me began to be exciting a little bit, and to see, here's someone who is so sensitive to those issues of medication. And one of the things too is, and I think you see this as well, the answer to people many times if they're having, episodes and just this idea that the idea is that you can medicate them to health is a problematic to me. Mm-hmm. I just believe it is. And it doesn't mean that medicines don't work. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying go stop your medication. I'm not saying don't give them, but is there other ways to help in that regard that can reduce that dependency? And if we can, that'd be great. So Bobby's the same way. So for us, I got a partnership now that he and I are going to continue to work on from the research side and from the other. Also hopefully bringing DOD involved a little bit in this as well, because that's part of our problem, Shawn. We hadn't even really talked about this. The transition from DOD to civilian, or what we would term VA, our side, is really bad. We don't do this well. And it's not just the VA health or VA benefit, not just the benefit. It's we're not giving a lot of our young service members and even old service members the transition that they need. We send them through the programs. You do the briefings. You've been there. And is it really working? And the answer has to be that probably it's not working like it should, because we're seeing too many people end up in suicidal issues. We're seeing too much end up homelessness issues, or financial breakdowns, marriage breakdowns. Because as much as for those of us in the military who can gripe about the structure at times, you take away the structure, and even the harshest rebel, who rebelled against structure, would say, I need that structure. So I think that's where it's really changed for me, in looking at how we do this and how we go about it. So again, having partners like that is going to be, whether it be at DOD, whether it be at HHS, or with us at the VA, is going to be very important moving forward.
What is the plan? Mm-hmm. Like with psychedelics, mm-hmm. What is the plan moving forward? How does it get introduced into the VA? What needs to happen?
Well, the first off we're going to do is I'm getting this information now. Again, this is a part of this. I've already had a few who have came in who've actually talked about it, who want to talk about it some more. And then we got this study that's being done in conjunction up in New York. I want to see if there's a possibility to expand that program. Where is it right now? Again, some of this I'm getting, and again, I'm not trying to be anything evasive here. I've got to get the knowledge of what we're doing and what we have not done. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to get that information and see. I know what the program you're talking about. I've heard about it, as well. So let's get data on that. Have our people start, reaching out across the board to say, okay, what is out there? Then we've got to also then take that and look at what is the structural limitations that I have. What is the VA structural problems to either entering into a larger study or entering into a trial basis or, basically possibly even, as you said earlier, voucher funding or whatever that may be. What are my structural limitations that Congress has put on me there? Is there structural limitations that says you can use X dollars for this, but you can't use X dollars for that? Okay. And then if there is, and we find enough evidences in our place to do it, then I'm going to go to Congress. I'm going to go to the House Veterans Affairs Committee. I'm going to go to the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, and then I'm going to go to the leadership and say, look, these are things that I need changed. Y'all may not be able to agree on a lot of things here, but these are some things hopefully you can agree on. Give me the statutory ability, even if you want to do it on a limited basis to start off with, I'll take that so that I can actually start trying. If I find out I don't have some of the statutory limitations, then I want to know what policy-wise may be hindering this, or is there a policy that can make sure that we're working with partners to do this? Now, again, you said it earlier. The fiduciary role I take very seriously. You get close to a vet. You get close to one, and Shawn, you may have heard me say this already in this discussion. I call them my vets and my employees. I don't do that to belittle. I don't do that. It's just personalized to me. Mm-hmm. So if you get close to them, we're going to make sure you're doing it right. My fiduciary duty is I got to make sure that no matter how great you think your program is, I got to make sure that we're not opening something up that nobody else has seen. And and that's just due diligence kind of thing. So we're going to make that happen. One of the things that was concerning me, and almost a sidetrack to what we're talking about here, is there's a lot of residential treatment facilities in the private sector now that, because of wait times for some mental health issues, that are now popping up. Okay, I got no problem with us, and Congress is sort of backing this up, and we're putting some more money in there for it. But one of the concerns have we created a cottage industry for this now? Because look, money in DC is like water on a pavement. It's going to go to its lowest part. It's going to find its way out. Okay. So if all of a sudden people hear there's money in this, then there's always going to rise to meet that demand. But is that demand always good? No, it's not, because they're doing it quickly. They're doing it for the money. They're doing it for the possibility. Not every one of them, but probably some. So we're having to deal with that right now in those kind of programs. And I'm having to deal with our folks to say, are we making sure that if we're using these, are they up to standard that we need to be at? Because if we don't, then we're going to be giving money to things that aren't working and in the end hurting us in the long run. And I think that's something that I've got to be aware of. So for me, it really goes down to that. That's where we're already starting. We're going to have more meetings as we go about this to make sure we're getting the information, and as quickly as possible start to find those solutions that we can do something with.
Would advocacy help at all? Does it help you to get veterans that have been through X, Y, and Z treatments in front of Congress to vouch?
Yeah, it never hurts. It never hurts and to do that. Because again, I've said this for years, the best spokesman for anything is the satisfied customer. And I think that's the part, and the recognition that it may or may not be for everybody, but for me, this worked. And so in conjunction with what hopefully we're going to do over the next few weeks and maybe a couple months is seeing what are our limitations, beginning the process to say, hey, this has worked for me. I'm not sure where we're at in the process, but Mr. Congressman, Miss Congressman, or Madam Senator, whatever, I want you to know this has worked for me. I just want to give you this information, and I would appreciate if you help the Secretary find us a way to this. I believe this could help others. That's always a good. I would never turn anybody down to talk about what they have.
I mean, the reason I'm asking is earlier you're talking about how media is attacking you about this stuff, and so would a hearing with 1,000? I mean, you're talking to the largest veteran population in the world right now on this show. And so would it help if there was some type of a hearing at Congress and you brought in 1,000 vets that have been through different whatever you're advocating for change wise, to bring in people that it's actually worked for in front of Congress, televised, here it is.
Yep.
Media. Put this on.
Yeah, I think we could. I think that's something definitely working with Congress and working with the two committees in particular to say, as we go forward, here's things that we want to emphasize. And some of that's been done a little bit, but I think it could be done more. I'm not going to downplay that there's not been an interest in Congress about this. But it's not just the VA committee there. It's the Energy and Commerce, which does a lot of the healthcare stuff and everything else. So there's different ways. But yeah, I think those are definitely ways if we can get partnership with the Congress to say, are there better ways to do this? And I think, frankly, I think it'll be a Republican and Democrat coming together on it. I think you're going to see both parties be willing to look at stuff that work. You're going to have some on both ends who say, no, we're not going to touch this, or no, this is bad. But you're going to have enough in the middle to say, well, let's at least listen to it. So I think as we progress in the next little bit with our information, and then working with Chairman Boston in the House and the committee, and Chairman Moran and the other side, to say, hey, we've got some ideas here. Is this something we could get you to take a look at? We could make sure you have all the witnesses you want in dealing with this. I think it'd be definitely something. Now, I'm not going to also fool anybody. You start dealing with everybody's sort of piece of the pie out there, nonprofits, VSOs, everybody starts shuffling, you're going to make a lot of people nervous, Shawn. Mm-hmm. Because, again, you're dealing in livelihood, so to speak, with stuff that they're doing and how they've done it, and do we need to change and not change. I'm not bought and sold to anybody. I'm bought and sold to the veteran getting the help that they need and not dying anymore. So look, this is where we got to have it. And right now, the bigger fights that we got to have is getting a structural basis. These are things that we can work on, but bringing it back to where we sort of started this whole thing is I've got to work on getting the VA in the best possible shape it can be to actually do its mission. And right now, we're probably a little more than probably we are heavy in where our allocation of employees are, where allocation and where our contracts have been spent and how the money is being spent and should be spent differently. Those are the things that we're working on very hard right now. But again, when you got Congress who has put this money out there telling everybody it's going to work, but the reality is it's not, they're going to be very hesitant to be told that what they did was wrong or to do it better. And so we're fighting those battles right now that are keeping me away from dealing with some of these other issues on how can we, find new and inventive ways to do things. How can we actually try things that haven't been tried before? So I'm fighting a bunch of battles on different levels right now. And wherever veterans can help, that's where I would love to have them be a part of this solution.
Man, it's just a damn shame. You got the entire veteran population that's screaming, we need help. This is how you help us. And then you got the fucking bureaucrats that are getting in the way, that are slandering whatever's happening in the media. And I think that's what makes it so frustrating is we know what we need and we know what we want. And we can't get it done because some fucking politician in D.C. who didn't never step a foot on a fucking combat ever, never, is making the decisions for us, and it pisses us off.
Yep.
And, but earlier you had mentioned about community health care.
Yeah.
How is it working now, and what would you like to see happen?
It's not working as good as it should, I believe. And I think this is where we need to make it easier. And I think, and again, I look at this generationally. And this, and I don't mean to put everybody in a pigeonhole here, but we're dealing with different generations of veterans. Okay, I still got World War II veterans. I still got Korean veterans. Still have a lot of Vietnam veterans. And then there's a sort of that, if you know your history, sort of that lull time, that 70s and 80s that was sort of after the Vietnam, before Gulf War, that is a veteran that has a lot of different needs. They were in a lot of different things, but just they're sort of the quiet veteran, that veteran in the middle. And then you sort of pick up with Gulf War and then GWAT. Okay, think about that for a second. You go from boomers, or not even boomers, you go pre-boomers to the greatest generation, through boomers, through X, through everything else. The mentality of those generations and how they interact with the VA is very different.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.